Hey, welcome back to the Bronze Cave. I'm Christopher, aka the Bronze Age Nerd, and in today's video, we're going to look back on my top 5 not to buy series and do a price check and see how those books have held up. I want to talk to you about the sponsor of today's video, which is Comic Barricade. Comic Barricades are an ingenious solution to a problem I guarantee that we've all had. Have you ever had comic books leaning over or falling over inside a partially filled comic book box? Comic Barricade creates a partition within your comic book boxes that's going to help stop your comic books from falling over and causing those spine ticks and creases that we're all trying to avoid. They're also going to make your comic book boxes more rigid, which will help when you're stacking comic book boxes on top of each other. This patent design is made here in the United States and it ships for free. So if you want to check them out, go head over to comicbarricade.com. Now don't forget to use the code BRONZE10 at checkout. That's going to save you 10%. And I want you to remember, it's as easy as insert, support, and stabilize. So real fast, if you're not familiar with my videos that I do a top 5 not to buy, where I basically look at the key collector trending 20, CBSI hot 10, cover price top 10, all those lists. And I find 5 comic books that I don't think are necessarily great investments. And then to follow up on that, I track the prices a few months later. I'm still catching up to my older videos. So we're about 4 months or so behind now. We're getting closer to those old videos. So we are going to try to cut off at the 3-month mark, and then we'll track those comics again at the 6-month mark and probably the 1-year mark as well if people enjoy this series. So let's dive into the values. All right, so the first place we're going to go for the values here is cover price. Then we'll go check out eBay. For this book, which was Justice League Incarnate #1, the Bresson and Peterson 1 in 25 variant. This was the first appearance of Dr. Multiverse and the first cover appearance. As always, we'll look at the value overview here, which is the current price, not necessarily the 3 months later from when I made the video. And we see no graded sales data, so we'll go straight to raw. Here's your graph for the raw sales. And looking at sales data, the video I made was made on December 18th, 2021. And there we see the book selling pretty steadily from $35 all the way up to $43, $45, and as low as $16 on one sale. That's a bit of an outlier. $29.99. And then since then, we actually don't have a lot of sales data. In February, we had a $12.50 sale, but also a $45 sale. That's pretty interesting. From cover prices data, if we think $35 to $45, that's not a massive leap. Okay, and I've gone back to eBay here to look at historical sales data. This is January 29th for $23.50. And then moving forward in time, I've got, here's the $12.50 sale on February 5th. Best offer accepted for less than $35. A $30 sale in February. A $10 sale in February. And a $60 sale in March. Interesting. Less than $20 because it's a best offer accepted. Coming up on the deadline, I don't see any other sales. So based on what I can see here, this is really peculiar. And I think with a lot of these new moderns, I've mentioned this before, there's a really good chance that a lot of these are off getting graded at CGC and haven't come back yet. So maybe we'll see huge record-breaking sales. All that's for future videos. I can't judge on assumptions. From what I can see here, with a couple outliers a little bit high, there's also a couple outliers a little bit low. I'm going to go ahead and call this one, it wasn't a good buy. I don't think this was a good comic book to invest in back in December. At least not yet. I think we'll have to kind of check back later. All right, next in on the list, we have Miles Morales number 33. This is the Mahanini 1 in 25 variant. I don't think there's anything key about this issue. I believe this was just a hot cover. No graded sales data, of course, for a book that new. So we're going to look at the raw sales data. All right, on December 18th, we started to see some sales data on the 19th. $34 all the way up to $100 around Christmas time, 120, 123, 105, 120, 110, 100, 92, 46, and then in February, 70, 69, 30, and 79. So we're definitely seeing a fall off, but it definitely jumped up at the end of December and in January there. All right, going back to my oldest sale on eBay, that's from January 28th for $81, $90, $90, and then we go down to 46, 61 from Canada, 60 from Canada, less than 90, 60, 70, 70, $20, 55, 70, 30, 41, and I think that's about, yeah, that's our cutoff. So this book, it looks like you probably could have done well on this book for a window of time. It does look like it's dropping to me on a long enough timeline here. I think it's going to keep going down. Again, graded's probably going to be a different story. We're going to have to check in on that price later when that sales data becomes available for some 9.8s. But right now, I would say this was a good investment up front. If you bought that book, if you pre-ordered it, for example, and you knew it was going to be hot and you really had faith in that cover and you sold it, a month later, you probably made some good money on it. So definitely interesting, but I think we're starting to see it trail off. Still, I'm going to call this one, since we're only down to about $40 on the sale there, and that's still more than ratio. I'm actually going to say this one was probably a good buy, although I do think we're going to see it continue to decline as time goes on. All right, this is one I've been really interested to kind of go back and look at. This is Uncanny XMen 282, the reprint of the first appearance of Bishop. This is the second printing, which is the gold background. And I think Bry's Comics is the one that suggested this. And there's some sound logic behind it too. So this is interesting. This one, we do have graded sales data. So we're just going to real fast look at the raw comic data. Around that time frame in December, we definitely saw the value start to go up. I mean, I'm thinking about $20 looks about average here. And then we were seeing 76, 65, 50, 36, 60. So a lot of high sales. And then nothing in January, and we go to February, and it looks like kind of a mid-grade selling for $22. All right, let's look at graded. So cover price notes that the most common grade here is 9.6, which is interesting. So 9.6 sold for $103 in December, before I made the video, and then it sold for $53 in February. A 9.8 though sold for $206 in September and $400 in December. Very interesting. That would definitely be up. And so here we do get to see some kind of graded and some raw sales data. In February, which is as far back as I can go, I see $25 for raw, $66 for a 9.4. And then we're all over the place. I mean, you have a 99-cent copy selling a $50, 2 copies. They're near mint, supposedly selling for $15. We're really all over the place, guys. 31. You see this $80 one, you get excited, but that's actually several different copies of 282, including a gold cover. Here we see a best offer for less than $4.25. Here we are. I mean, there's one that sold for less than $14, $18. I think this is very similar. I think we're back down to kind of the territory I would expect on this one. Now, the argument behind this is the second printing didn't have as high of a print run. I actually think that maybe now's a good time to buy this book if you were interested in it. But I think it was a bad idea to try to buy it at the hype there, because we saw just how quickly this book shot up. So unless you happen to already have copies, you probably weren't having too great of a time if you were buying at the peak and then trying to sell now. I do think it's returning back to normal. So I'm going to go ahead and call this one not a good buy. But I do think that this book has potential in the future. If we ever get a Bishop casting announcement in the MCU, you're going to see this book go back up again. So maybe now is a good time to buy it on the low. All right, this one I'm probably going to get absolutely destroyed on, because Moon Knight is airing right now, and this was Moon Knight spec. This is West Coast Avengers 21, and this is when Moon Knight joins the West Coast Avengers. Now, we do have some graded sales data and some raw sales data. Let's just get an idea where we were at with the raws. Those were selling in December, I'm going to say about, well, it's all over the place, really, anywhere between $10 to $30. $35 looks like. And then in January, I don't see any sales over $20. And in February, I don't see any sales over, well, I barely see one. Okay, there's one for $30 that sold high grade, looks like, probably. And then we get to March, and we're still pretty down on this book. Let's check out graded. Cover price says the most common grade is a 9.6 for this one as well. So let's look at a 9. Oh, actually, there's very little sales data here. One sold for $53 in January. Okay, how about eBay? All right, on eBay, we go back to that January 29th mark, and $10. There's a 25. I'm kind of going to look at that's a couple books. That's a lot of a bunch of books. 27 for one copy. That's pretty good. Yeah, $10. I think this one's flat. I don't think it was necessarily a good buy. It's something if I found it in a dollar bin, I'd probably pick it up, but I don't really think I'm going to go out seeking this book. First of all, if he becomes an Avenger at some point, I just go back to that. I don't see that being a big deal. Like, we don't really care when characters join the Avengers. Pretty much everybody joined the Avengers at one point or another. There's some exceptions where those characters are a little bit more notable in how they joined. When it comes to Moon Knight, though, especially with it being the West Coast Avengers, I'd go after the first appearance of the West Coast Avengers before I went after Moon Knight joining the West Coast Avengers. But that's just me. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Okay, our final book is a pretty big one. It's Fantastic Four Annual #1. So this is kind of the origin of Atlantis. It's the origin of Namor retold. It's basically, it was a big deal because the Fantastic Four books were all kind of on the rise. This one, raw sales data for a book from 1963, it's going to be messy, but just to give you an idea, we're talking about anywhere between $125 on the low end to $700 basically in December when I made the video. And after that, anywhere from $51 to $720, $300 to $460, and about $300 to $400 in the raw. Raw is really tough though. All right, our most common grade on this book is actually a 9.0, which is pretty high for a book from the Silver Age. So if we look at a 9.0, do we have accurate sales data? Not really. In August, it was selling for $18.80, and in April of this year, it's selling for $23.97. That's not a great sample. Yeah, unfortunately, none of the data here is really good enough for us to look at. What if we looked at a lower grade just to see? So like if we looked at a 6.5, 1,050 in January to 1,475 in April. That's pretty interesting. So I think graded copies on this one, what I might think happened here, and eBay is unfortunately going to be a bit of a mess, but that's a cover only. And then 300, 225, 1,300, but it was sold with another book, 103, 460. I think what really is happening with this book from looking at these prices is I think that it's one of those things where maybe the overall floor for this book kind of rose, but I don't necessarily see the ceiling rising that much either. The logic that I had for including this one on the list was it's a big buy-in. This is an expensive book, and it's also not like a massive key. It is a key. It's the first Fantastic Four annual. That's really cool for one thing. So it's a good book, but I just didn't think buying it, it's why buy an expensive book or a relatively expensive book when they're at their height of people looking at trying to buy them, like when there's a bunch of eyes on it, because it's going to drive the price up. And my logic was to wait. I think you're going to get a better deal than you would have at the time. Still, the time to buy was before it ever showed up on a list. I mean, by far. But considering that, I think I feel pretty comfortable in saying that this probably wasn't a great book to buy at the time. But if you have a nice looking copy of it, you probably cemented yourself into being able to increase the resale value of that a little bit, which is really cool. All right, well, thanks for following along as I looked back at my comic book choices from a few months ago, and we saw how it tracked over the next 3 months. Pretty soon, we'll be getting to the point where I'll be doing 6 month later look backs, and that's going to be really exciting. I'm going to have to figure out a way to tighten up these videos a little bit. I almost want to hear what you guys think about everything that happened in this video. Let me know in the comment section below. Thanks for watching, everybody, and I want to remind you, as always, hey, 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 hey. Read comics every day.